This video is brought to you by the excellent website builder Squarespace. Make sure you stick around to see how you can get 10% off your first website or domain name. Do I even have to say anything anymore? Okay, so for those of you who only watch this series and have wondered where the hell it's been for the past 2 weeks, yeah, let's just say the postal service is not very fast right now. So ordering things with next day shipping can still sometimes go into 3 to 4 and maybe even 5 days. I did put out a post last week saying that this episode was going to be delayed as I just didn't have the pieces to complete Giant Man, and I wasn't going to show something that was half built because I wanted to get your guys' opinions on truly how this would look. So without further ado, let's jump into building the ultimate Civil War airport battle, a 6-part series where we go through and try and make the airport battle from 2016 more of a master builder's set. And even though, like I say, this part has been delayed, this is part 4 where we take a look at Giant Man. If you haven't seen any of the previous parts, I recommend going to check that out because part 1 we discussed the plan, in part 2 we looked at the minifigures I'd be including in this, part 3 we looked at some studio files that's going to really fill out this airport, and now part 4 we're taking a look at Giant Man. And taking a look at his minifig, you can see that it's a very nicely detailed figure. And even though, yes, there is a way better helmet that I could put on this figure to make it even more detailed, it's just not one that I wanted to include in this, considering that the original set has a brick-built version. So from the get-go, I always wanted to build some form of gigantic minifigure. And even though online, yes, there are a few other versions of Giant Man, before I show him off, I want to just explain why I went with this direction of Giant Man, because there are many different directions you can go down when building quote-unquote a giant minifig. Now, LEGO minifigures in my mind are iconic. I love them to pieces. And I know they're horribly disproportionate in comparison to something like a human being incredibly wide, but I still think these are the most iconic pieces of LEGO. Meaning, if we take a normal minifigure and we make him giant, it's not all of a sudden going to make normal human proportions, something like Hachiroku 24 has done. I've probably butchered that name, I'm sorry. But they made this Giant Man, and although it's very nice and I very much like this design, like I say, if a minifigure was to get bigger, I don't think it would all of a sudden grow human proportions. I much prefer his second attempt on this, which makes it look more like the minifig proportions, which I believe uses the same sort of instructions as the buildable Harry Potter figures that we got in June of this year. These are 2 really good designs, but I really wanted mine to be bigger. So when doing research and development for this figure, I scoured Rebrickable and Google Images to just try and find something that would be a good base to work off of when building my Giant Man. And unfortunately, there wasn't a lot. Yeah, I could do most of the building myself, but some of the minifigures' angles, especially those torso ones, are hard to get on a larger sized figure. And I really wanted the positions of the arms and legs to be held in place so I could pose the figure like I could any other minifigure. And taking a look at a lot of different designs, I finally came up with something I'm happy with. And yes, before you ask, instructions are currently being worked on, so you guys can build this exact Giant Man that I've created. However, I do want to give a quick shout out to State Alchemist over on Rebrickable, because I took a lot of inspiration from his Galactus design. So if you guys were thinking about making a Galactus or just a giant minifig, I recommend buying his instructions as they'll be cheaper than mine. But if you do want to build this Giant Man exactly like I've built mine, instructions will be available on TommyCBricks.com, which is a website I've had for about a year now, so that's why I'm very excited to say that this episode is brought to you by Squarespace. If you've ever thought about creating your own brand, online personality, or shop, then Squarespace is one of the best ways to do that. Even if you don't know how to make a website, Squarespace has you covered with some of their awesome templates, and if you get stuck, they have 24/7 award-winning customer service. And not only that, if you're thinking about selling things like LEGO instructions like I do on my website, they have a commerce section that has the tools to get your business off the ground, with things like an easily navigatable inventory management, a simple checkout process, and secure payments. And not only that, Squarespace has marketing features that will make your products look their best online. Like I say, I use these features all the time over on my website. So make sure you go to squarespace.com/TommyCBricks, which is the first link in the description, and use code TommyCBricks to get 10% off your first website or domain name. Now back to the video. As you can see, this is a normal sized minifig. And like I said in the beginning half of the video, I like to make a minifig's proportions the same whether they get bigger or smaller. LEGO do tend to take this concept into stuff like their nanofigs and their bigger figs, as you can see by these examples, but the bigger version of Ant-Man from that original set just doesn't have the same feel that I would like out of a giant LEGO figure. The back of this figure is horrible, only consisting of big open studs, meaning you can really only look at this figure from the front. And even then, I feel like this figure is really stuck in the past by just making all of its detail mainly stickers. Even Gwarp from the Harry Potter series did, in my mind, a better job, even though it uses the same figure as a base. But without further ado, here is my update to that Giant Man figure from the Civil War set. I hope you guys enjoy it. As you can see, I've gone for a very similar look to State Alchemist, being just a little bit shorter because of that helmet, and if I'm honest, building this was a massive challenge. This model consists of 1,300 pieces, and obviously when building a custom LEGO set, you don't have numbered bags, so needing to null everything out would have probably been the better decision. However, I'm really impatient, so I wanted to get building right away. Constructing Giant Man was a task in itself. His hands and legs are almost 3 times as big as a minifig, and here is what the whole figure looks like in comparison to his minifig self. I think this captures the minifig proportions almost perfectly, and having things like these open studs in the back of the legs, something that the LEGO Harry Potter figures do not have, by the way, just sells that look to me that this minifigure has gotten bigger, a look which I really like. Another thing I just want to take a quick look at is the helmet. Now the helmet went through 3 iterations, and if we take a look at the scene, you can see that these red pieces on the forehead aren't actually there in the Civil War airport fight. Now in universe, this is just because this version of the Ant-Man suit was a predecessor to the Ant-Man 2 suit, therefore this looks slightly different, but the reason I put them there on this model was because every single version of the Ant-Man figure that we've had has had those red lines above the eyes. But don't worry, if you do want to take them off, if you guys were going to build this yourself, they are interchangeable with grey panels, so you can make this look exactly like the one from the airport fight scene if you wanted to. For me, however, I think I'm just going to leave them on. Now this version of Ant-Man doesn't have the flip down mask like the other big fig did, but considering that never happens in the film, I'm pretty sure that that's okay, and there is no flesh tone head underneath this helmet. It is technically just all one big head, but the main thing I really like about this figure is the fact that he can actually hold his arms up and they can stay there. Something I've heard the Harry Potter figures do struggle with, and I wish I could say the same thing about the figure's legs. However, just because of the sheer weight of the figure, you're not going to be doing any running poses with this figure anytime soon. I wish I had the parts for the wings constructed, just so I could show you guys him holding the wing, but I guess we'll have to wait till the full reveal to do that shot. If I'm honest, I'm super proud of the way that this guy turned out, and all of it works, and it's completely legal, at least as far as I'm aware, in terms of building technique. Like I say, if you want to build this yourself, you can check out my website. The instructions will be available after episode 6. We're just over halfway on this series now, so let me know what you guys think of it in the comment section below. And hey, if you want to see some other things that might be on my website, you should check out my top 10 Ghostbusters mods. Once again, some cool other projects going on at the same time as this. Click the screen. I'll see you in the next one.